What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. It appears that, according to reports, that the Switch is getting a version of Gotham Knights. Shout out to one of my longtime supporter of the channel who pointed this news out to me, Astro Cyborg. According to Nintendo Everything, it appears that based on a filing for some rating or so, I think it's probably an ESRB rating, that we're going to be possibly getting a Switch version of the Nintendo, of the Gotham Knights game. So that's very interesting overall. Now, there are questions. If you actually click on the post, some people are wondering, the game never made it to the PS4 or Xbox. What's going on? There are many things to consider in all of this in terms of a conversation. So I'll try my best to see if we can actually squeeze it into a small, short 10-minute or sub 10-minute video. So first of all, it appears that Warner Brothers makes this move quite frequently, more than anything else. I think Hogwarts Legacy seemed to have been where the developers were dedicated to get a Switch version going for the game, and it actually did happen. So that was actually quite cool in my opinion. I thought, man, the developers must have just taken the time and were very dedicated to make sure that the fans got their game, and were able to play it on multiple platforms, which more than likely improved and increased sales and so on and so forth. Mortal Kombat 1 is also another game that's not getting a PlayStation 4 version, and seems like, according to the developer's announcement so far, there will be a Switch version of the game. So how is it possible? What's going on? And, why is all this seemingly a thing? Well, the way games work is you make them on a PC and then you start to scale down the game, or in quote, optimize the game. That's basically build the game in a way that it suits your console, or at least build the game in a way that it suits your console and then scale up to PC using all kinds of different parameters that, are available to you depending on your engine, depending on your development style, depending on all kinds of other factors. This is my understanding from Unreal Engine 4. This is the one engine that I've spent a lot of time kind of using and learning, so I can't speak for other engines that are out there, but because Gotham Knights is an Unreal Engine 4 game, it is quite nice to be able to, get some inner workings of what the game is about just from past knowledge. So this is one thing that you're going to see. Another really interesting thing too is, in order for them to be able to make these ports for the Nintendo Switch, there's a lot of sacrifice that actually goes into it. In fact, just a few months ago, I made a video talking about Tears of the Kingdom when it came out, in my argument that 30 FPS was not a factor for most gamers. Whenever most gamers enjoyed or loved the game, they didn't care if the game was 30 FPS or not. And I actually brought some, proof, because some people came to me and said, well, the Switch is a limited machine. Games don't run at 60 FPS on a Nintendo Switch. But that's just a misconception, because apparently there is a number of games that do run on the Switch at 60 FPS. One of them is Mortal Kombat 11. Apparently, if you actually look at, say, a comparison between Mortal Kombat 11 on the Switch and any other platform, you will realize what has been done to get this game to be on the Switch. So this is the Switch version of Mortal Kombat 11 with Kotal Kahn and Sub-Zero standing in the exact same stage I just showed you just now with the regular Xbox version. So if you're looking very carefully, this is what the Xbox version looks like, YouTube compression and all that in place. And then just a few seconds later, you're going to see that the Switch version is actually one that does come with a lot of texture loss and detail loss. Basically, it's almost paperboard type, rendition in terms of its rendering. Like, the characters look like you took, colors and you colored them on a piece of cardboard and you cut them out. You've lost a lot of detail here. I even went ahead to show it with two other characters, with Jade and with Cetrion, where if you look at, say, even the Switch version for both of them, it just kind of looks kind of whack. Look at the visual effects in regard to how both of them actually do look. Whereas if you look at, say, even the console version, the detail is much better, yet the Switch version is just absolutely grimy and, whack. So look at this. This is the console version, and look how much texture you have. Look at how the characters stand out. The polygons are good, but then when you go to the Switch version of the game, the polygons are reduced. Everything is just kind of weird, and, it's insane how they were able to do it. So if you get a Gotham Knights game, and if this is all true, and if it's not just conjecture, you will see that these kinds of, sacrifices are made to get the game to run on those platforms. Now, as to why the PlayStation, version and the Xbox version are being skipped, I think it's because the developers understand that there's just going to be a lot of work that's required to go into the game, seeing the way that it was built. It's going to be very interesting as to how it all works. Could also be that parity may not not be required in order for them to get the Switch version, as in the sense of maybe it's not going to be necessary to have co-op on there, or the untethered co-op that Gotham Knights has on the console. Now, even with Gotham Knights being locked at 30 FPS on the Series X and the PS5, I'm sure this is a question a lot of people have. They probably wonder, why is this locked at this frame rate? The truth of the matter is Gotham Knights can run at more than 30 FPS on the consoles. The challenge, though, is the way the game is designed, it is CPU limited. We've seen that a lot of these new games are getting a lot of CPU limitation. I think that possibly the cause of this is the amount of detail that the developers are trying to squeeze into these games to give them the next gen look and the next gen feel, even at higher frame rates. And so when they start developing, they realize, man, it's insane for us to be able to hit these frame times. They have to then go back to the default, locking it at 30 FPS, or developing the game from ground up at 33 milliseconds for the console. That is the frame time that you need to know if your game is going to be running at 30 FPS. If it runs at half of that, 16 milliseconds, basically a faster frame time, you're going to get 60 FPS. And so this is what's going on. Now, how we know that Gotham Knights can even run at higher FPS is because Digital Foundry actually did an analysis where they got their hands on a 4800S. This is a desktop kit built from the framework of the Xbox Series X. These were units that were sold in China from defective GPU-based Series X or APU Series X's, which had their CPUs still working, and then it appears AMD just took them, added some more components, and sold them as game or PC development kits. So Digital Foundry ran a test with a lot of different games. They added the 7900 XTX, which is AMD's flagship GPU. They ran these tests and found out Gotham Knights was doing about 50 FPS, but in some places it would drop even at the 35, 36 FPS mark, which made sense for the developers to lock it at that frame rate because it just, it was the way the game was. So when you see that Switch version, you're not going to have the amount of detail that you have in the console or even on the PC version, because that detail would have to be scaled down just the way you got to see in Mortal Kombat 11 just now with the Switch version. And even the MK1 game that's coming to the Switch is also going to have these limitations as well. So these are some of the things that people are paying attention to now, even with hardware. In fact, just recently, Digital Foundry went ahead and took that same desktop kit and ran another test for Starfield. And to your surprise, or maybe to our not surprise, they were able to get the game to hit 60 FPS running it on a similar device. In fact, basically Xbox Series X, but they added this time an RX 6700, which is a GPU that is closer to the APU, or at least the one that you can kind of, in a sense, compare with the APU in the Xbox Series Series X actually. And they found out that they were able to get 60 FPS in specific areas, especially in closed areas. This is how a lot of these open world games have been running more recently overall on the new hardware. I think at the end of the day, it's more of a, new uncharted territory to try to even think about running open world games on a console. On a PC, you could, basically do all kinds of really cool stuff in regard to your PC. You could add more RAM, change your GPU, and so everything could be, in a sense, offset, and you could get and lock 60 FPS just because the way the CPUs and the GPUs for consoles actually do work in regard to that. In fact, they were seeing even 60 FPS in space when you're fighting and, you're, dealing with all kinds of other different, areas that are not necessarily crowded or tasking. So crazy to say what Todd Howard basically said, and this is the kit. This is what it looks like. Those of you who may be wondering, it is basically an APU. The CPU is soldered to the board, and I'm sure AMD went ahead and just added here a PCIe port. They added a power, 24 pin power, and a few other things like your USB, pretty much what you have in a regular motherboard. And this is only in China, so they were able to get their hands on this. I've been looking everywhere where to find it. AMD basically didn't talk about this stuff anywhere else in the world. So I think it was just one of those benefits that, the region had, because possibly production was being done, for a lot of those Xbox devices there. So that's why they were able to easily convert those, when it came down to it. So the Switch version is probably going to be, in my opinion, something that, they probably have done. They've been able to probably scale down all the details to lowest, and the animations, they've been able to compress them heavily. And so it should not be a problem overall for them to be able to get the game running on the Nintendo Switch. But these are my thoughts so far. If we see it, then it will be very interesting to see how it plays, to see what the quality looks like, and I'll be happy to probably test it out, or maybe even, in a sense, talk about it a little bit more so that we can see how things progress. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.